Tonight, front and center.
Your faith is your property, not the government's property.
The Conservative Political Action Conference, or C-PAC, underway ahead of former President Trump's first public speech since leaving the White House. Plus,
we know what we did.
U.S. airstrikes against Iranian-backed militias in Syria. And a new vaccine.
We have a plan to roll it out as quickly as Johnson & Johnson can make it.
Adding to the arsenal in the battle against COVID-19. Plus,
was my baby boy. He was he was a mama's boy, and I never thought that he would leave like this.
Marking 1 year since the killing of Ahmaud Arbery. All this and more tonight on Faith Nation. Conservatives hammer out a path forward in Florida. Welcome to Faith Nation and good evening. I'm John Jessup. While Democrats may control Washington, conservatives have flooded the Sunshine State, stealing the spotlight and headlines with the annual C-PAC meeting. On the agenda, everything from cancel culture to faith in the public square. One of the first speakers, Oklahoma Senator James Lankford.
In the words of James Madison, your religious opinions are a property of particular value. Your faith is your property, not the government's property. It's like your car, your house, or your Browning 12 gauge. It is your property. The problem is, not everyone believes that.
Each year, thousands attend the conference hosted by the American Conservative Union. This year, instead of D.C., C-PAC is in Florida, where the pandemic restrictions are less stringent. All eyes this weekend on former President Trump's anticipated speech. With more on the big event tonight, we turn to Matt Schlapp. He is the chairman of the American Conservative Union. Matt, normally we see your wife Mercedes here, but it's nice to mix things up. Welcome to Faith Nation.
I'm sorry, you're getting the second best Schlapp.
I think she would beg to differ. Well, Matt, C-PAC kicked off last night in Florida. It's usually right here in D.C., as we were just saying. Is that move significant? And then right after that, what's the one big thing that's driving energy there this weekend?
Yeah, well, first of all, you know, it's just what we're all facing. Maryland canceled us. The governor of Maryland didn't think it was safe to have C-PAC. And I just said I wouldn't be the first ACU chairman in half a century to cancel C-PAC. So we started looking around, and Governor Ron DeSantis, I will have to say, was pretty welcoming.
Former Vice President Mike Pence notably turned down the invite to attend. Did he give you any in-depth reason why?
Yeah, we had a great, long conversation, my wife Mercy and I, and we talked about what a great run it was for 4 years, all the things we got done for the country. And I think Mike Pence, who's a very prayerful man, believes that this is a time for him to kind of stay a little more quiet, a little more out of view, not because he's done anything wrong, but because he's a little bit retooling, and he's thinking about how he reemerges on the stage. He's absolutely going to be in the fight. He's going to advocate for the same types of issues he always has, and it's okay for a politician every once in a while to get a little more quiet. And, you know, quite frankly, President Trump, who'll be here Sunday, he's been a little more quiet, not because he necessarily chose to be more quiet, but because he was silenced. But in my conversations with him as well, I think he's enjoyed the fact that it's okay to get a little bit outside the ring of fire. And I'm excited to see what he has to tell us on Sunday.
Matt, with a position like yours, I'm sure you have to utilize the power of persuasion every now and then. Did you try to convince Vice President Pence otherwise?
Well, that's a good question, and I'm an honest man, so I'll tell you yes. I told him I thought he should come to C-PAC because I think one of the things that happened as it all ended is the vice president didn't get to, in the way that he does so carefully, explain that he understands that what happened around our election should never happen again. Widespread illegal voting run by Democrat machines in our biggest cities. And he believes that and knows that. He wants to help cure and correct our election integrity and our election system. And I thought C-PAC was the right place for him to start having that kind of conversation. That being said, it's how he feels. He talks to the president. All the myths about how they kind of left not talking to each other is wrong. We're all in this together. Our coalition is strong, and I believe we're poised to pick up the seats we need in the House and the Senate to win majorities. And I just have a feeling as Americans see all this socialism, the attack on gender, the attack on everything that we tried to get done under 4 years of President Trump, they're going to be open to put another Republican in that White House, and his last name might just well be Trump.
I want to ask you about that big Sunday talk from President Trump. It's going to be his first public address since leaving the White House. Does his speech and his appearance there solidify his position as the de facto leader of the GOP? And does that effectively quell all the talk about the GOP civil war?
Well, the only civil war that's going on in the GOP is amongst establishment moderate Republicans who never liked Trump. As he lost this perch as the president, they thought it was an opportunity to really try to push him out of the arena, and the president's not going anywhere. He's made that very clear. That's one of the reasons he's coming to C-PAC, I believe, is to make it very clear that he's going to stay engaged, just like Barack Obama stayed engaged, just like Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton stayed engaged. It's nice to have a Republican former president staying engaged. And I think as far as whether or not he leads the party, just look at polls. I mean, he's the sentimental favorite of not only the C-PAC attendees, but Republicans generally. But it's up to the president as to whether he really wants to undertake this arduous task of running for president again.
All right. Matt Schlapp with the American Conservative Union, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule this weekend.
Thanks for having me on.
All right. Well, tensions running high in the Middle East after U.S. airstrikes in Syria Thursday. The Pentagon described the first military action of the Biden administration as retaliation for a rocket attack earlier this month against a military base in Iraq where U.S. soldiers were stationed. 5 Americans were wounded in that attack. The U.S. airstrikes targeted buildings officials say are owned by militias backed by Iran, groups the U.S. government believes were behind the recent attacks against Americans in Iraq. The White House says the move wasn't meant to indicate more military involvement in the region, but to signal that the United States will defend its troops in Iraq. Well, here at home, President Joe Biden traveled to Texas today as the state recovers from a devastating winter storm that hit multiple states and left millions without power and drinking water. Here with us now, CBN White House correspondent Ben Kennedy. Ben, today's trip allowed the president to play up his role as counselor-in-chief.
Yeah, John, you're right. This is President Biden's first trip to a major disaster site since taking office. The First Lady joined him in Houston, where they met with some residents. Let's take you there, show you some video. They visited a food bank where Dr. Biden helped pack bags full of food for those in need. The president toured the Harris County Emergency Operations Center with Texas Governor Greg Abbott to discuss relief efforts. It's there they met with volunteers who've been on the front lines helping. Biden has pledged to provide all the resources in the federal government to help. He also heard from local leaders on the progress being made, but also that Texas faces a very long road to recover.
It's a hell of an operation. It's probably the best one in the country. It's a single place. But thank you for what you're doing. You're saving people's lives, and you're doing, as my mother would say, you're doing God's work, kid. You're doing God's work. Thank you.
And while there, President Biden heard about the current water situation. Pipes burst in homes, businesses, and schools, and it will take time to make those repairs. In the meantime, the Harris County leaders say they've distributed 12 million bottles of water. John?
All right, CBN White House correspondent Ben Kennedy. Thanks, Ben. Well, tonight, the debate on the Hill over that nearly $2 trillion stimulus package, with the U.S. on the verge of a third vaccine in the fight against COVID-19. Senior Washington correspondent Tara Mergener joins us now. Tara, Johnson & Johnson appears to be on track for emergency use authorization as early as tonight.
That's right, John. As Congress works through the latest coronavirus relief bill, health experts say this third vaccine is a potential game changer with up to 4 million doses that could be sent out as soon as Monday. Deemed 85% effective against preventing severe illness and 100% effective against hospitalization, this latest entry in the vaccine race is expected to produce 100 million doses.
We have a plan to roll it out as quickly as Johnson & Johnson can make it.
Early data shows it also works against variants and possibly asymptomatic infection.
What this means, from the data we looked at, that we now have 3 highly effective vaccines. This is very good news.
Just like Moderna and Pfizer, the first Johnson & Johnson doses will be divided up based on population between 64 areas. More options could join the pipeline, with vaccines by Oxford, AstraZeneca, and Novavax in phase 3 of their clinical trials. But
while things are improving, This is not a victory lap. Everything is not fixed.
The CDC also warning against relaxing restrictions, even as deaths and hospitalizations are coming down sharply.
But the latest data suggests that these declines may be stalling, potentially leveling off at still a very high number.
This latest weapon comes as the battle for a relief bill continues in Congress. Democrats now willing to leave out a provision to include a minimum wage hike.
In the middle of a pandemic where nearly 11 million Americans who have already lost their jobs, the last thing you do is increase the cost on businesses.
And Republicans challenging Democrats to commit funds to children suffering from mental health issues due to school closures, rather than programs not related to COVID relief.
Nancy Pelosi put $100 million into building a subway just outside her district for Silicon Valley. Last night, she added another $40 million to that in Rules Committee. We think the mental health of the children, because school closures are more important.
A vote on the bill could come as early as tonight or this weekend, and all of this as Moderna and Pfizer ramp up production of their two-dose vaccines, expected to produce 600 million doses. Health experts say there may be enough supply to get all American adults vaccinated by the end of June, John.
All right, senior Washington correspondent Tara Merchant. Thanks, Tara. Well, stick around. These two familiar faces will join me for our Friday Faith Nation political panel after the break.
Come home to the sounds of Southern Gospel from CBN Radio. You'll enjoy a rich Southern blend of bluegrass, classic gospel, and Southern gospel favorites like the Gaithers, the Crab Family, and bluegrass sounds like Mountain Faith. So make yourself at home with the all-new CBN Southern Gospel, now available at cbnradio.com.
It's about the competition.
I kind of put that pressure on myself, and I think people had expectations.
It's about overcoming.
We use this phrase all the time, keep chopping, keep practicing hard.
It's about going the distance.
You know, I think as a father, it's my job, to lead. Just be the best husband and father I can be.
Watch Going the Distance with Sean Brown Saturday night at 7:30 on the CBN News Channel.
Life. It's meant to be lived fully. Jesus said it. I came to give you life. Life to the fullest. Life in your family. Life in your finances. Life in your body, mind, and spirit. Life in your everyday. At CBN.com, we're taking what Jesus said seriously. We're here to help you discover life. Life. Live it fully. CBN.com.
Welcome back. Time now for our Friday Faith Nation political panel. Joining us, CBN Chief Political Analyst David Brody and Julia Manchester, political reporter at The Hill. Welcome to both of you. Julia, to you first. Your paper is out with a story citing a new poll that shows a majority of Republicans, more than two-thirds, say the 2020 presidential election was invalid. Julia, what does that say about the state of the GOP today and former President Trump's influence on the party?
Well, I think it shows that President Trump essentially has a firm grasp on the party. And we've actually seen at C-PAC today that we continue to see this peddling of really unproven theories that the election, there was a widespread fraud and such. And despite what happened at the Capitol, we're seeing that these theories continue to be pushed among some circles within the GOP. Now, there are Republicans such as Liz Cheney, who notably clashed with House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy at a press conference conference this week who has pushed back on this, saying President Trump does not represent the GOP and he should not have a place in the GOP. But I think ultimately Mitt Romney, the senator from Utah, one of President Trump's toughest critics, really said it best earlier this week. He said if President Trump ran for the 2024 nomination, he'd get it.
I remember that McCarthy-Liz Cheney moment that McCarthy called out as awkward. David, along those lines, after voting to acquit, Mitch McConnell had some blistering words for Trump over his role in the Capitol riot. Now McConnell says he'd absolutely support Trump if he were the 2024 nominee. David, does this mean the GOP civil war is all but over?
Well, no. I mean, the GOP civil war is definitely not over for sure. And let's be clear about Mitch McConnell. Can we just clear this up? And I don't mean this as any disrespect, but it's just truth. Mitch McConnell, what he cares about is if you have an R after your name. That's it. Look, AOC could decide to become a Republican. Let's just say AOC was a Republican and AOC had an R after her name. He doesn't care. He is looking. This is a numbers game for Mitch McConnell. So in answer to your question about Donald Trump, makes perfect sense. If he's the Republican nominee of the party, he Mitch McConnell, will back Trump because Trump's a Republican, and you got to stick together. It's all about numbers for McConnell.
If we can, we only have about a minute left, so maybe 30 seconds for each of you. The Senate parliamentarian ruled Democrats cannot include the minimum wage hike in COVID relief. Julia, David, did that guarantee its passage since passing the minimum wage galvanized opposition from both Republicans and moderate Democrats?
You know, I think it possibly has helped out Biden in a way, even though he said it was disappointed. But you are seeing a lot of progressives in the House speaking out against this, saying Biden hasn't pushed hard enough for this measure.
And David?
Yeah, John, I would just say, look, it makes Biden and the Democrats' job easier to pass a COVID-19 stimulus bill for sure. And that minimum wage bill, don't worry. If you're a Democrat, don't worry. It'll come back. They'll do it as a standalone bill. The question is, do they have enough Republicans to get it passed?
All right. CBN Chief Political Analyst David Brody and Julia Manchester with The Hill. We always appreciate your time and your insights. We hope you both have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Well, when we come back, the mother of Ahmaud Arbery speaks out to CBN. See how this mom is coping and relying on her faith 1 year since her son's tragic death.
Too often, we carry baggage from our past. You know what it's like. It affects everything and everyone in our lives. It's always there, weighing us down and keeping us from achieving true happiness. But do you know God never meant for us to be trapped in the past? You can be free of your baggage. Learn how God's forgiveness leads to changed lives and new beginnings. Call the 700 Club.
I'm Ephraim Graham, and this is Studio 5. Cruise with me as I discover the good things happening in the world of music, sports, television, and movies.
The fact that Ryan Coogler was going to be directing the film, I knew that something special was going to happen.
We'll chat with artists at the forefront of entertainment and explore the connection between popular culture and faith.
I asked my pastor, I said, well, does that mean I'm supposed to be a preacher? He says, well, no, you already have a pulpit.
Watch Studio 5 Wednesday night at 9:30.
Tikkun Olam.
This is our nature as a country.
To make the world a better place.
Literally, we felt the earth shaking.
The Christian Broadcasting Network presents To Life, how Israeli volunteers are changing the world.
This film needs to be seen by everyone.
I was in tears.
Now you can own the inspiring documentary To Life on DVD.
There is blood on our hands if we know and we walk away.
I'm so grateful that this film was made.
To Life can be yours for a gift of $10 or more. Call 1-800-700-7000 or log on to cbn.com.
We know that every minute counts to save life.
It'll bless Israel, but it'll also bless all the friends of Israel.
Discover the untold story of how Israeli volunteers are making the world a better place. Call 1-800-700-7000 or log on to cbn.com to get your copy today.
Welcome back. 1 year ago this week, a black man jogging through a mostly white South Georgia neighborhood was chased down and confronted by armed men in a clash that ended with Ahmaud Arbery's death. CBN's Eric Phillips talked with Arbery's mother ahead of the tragic anniversary.
Wanda Cooper Jones is resolved to see the legal process through until the end. One thing she's not done is watched the video of her son's last few moments of life. She says she's not yet strong enough to see what she calls a demonstration of evil.
Ahmaud was my baby boy. He was a mama's boy, and I never thought that he would leave like this. It's a feeling I never felt before. I never want to feel it again.
According to an old saying, time heals all wounds. Wanda Cooper Jones, however, is finding the exact opposite as she looks back on a year since her son, 25-year-old Ahmaud Arbery, was gunned down in the street.
It's getting harder because in the beginning it was a whole lot of interviews. Ahmaud's killers could face additional sentencing. I think that basically I was in shock. I was in a numb state.
But that's no longer the case, as now she feels everything.
I've lost a part of myself, and I'm getting a reality check of that every day.
In February of 2020, Arbery was jogging through this neighborhood near Brunswick, Georgia. After he was spotted by Greg and Travis McMichael, investigators say the father-son duo went after Arbery in their truck. A neighbor, William Roddy Bryan, followed along, capturing it on cell phone video. The McMichaels claim they thought Arbery was a neighborhood burglar, and when they caught up to him, the video shows Travis firing 3 shots, the last one during a struggle before the jogger collapsed. Cooper Jones says on the initial phone call, authorities said her son had been involved in a burglary, that a struggle ensued over a weapon, and that he'd been shot and killed.
He wasn't armed, and he didn't have any stolen goods in his possession. So why was he killed? I believe Ahmaud was killed because he was black. The Satilla Shores is a predominantly white neighborhood.
She believes her suspicions were confirmed during a court proceeding when a detective testified about what defendant and videographer William Bryan says he heard co-defendant Travis McMichael say right after pulling the trigger.
He heard Travis McMichael make the statement, "F***."
I didn't realize hate was that close to where I was raising my kids. I didn't realize that type of hate was so close.
Just weeks ago, this police body cam video emerged with one of the defendants explaining that this attempt at talking turned deadly.
If he would have stopped,
that's fine. That's fine. Like I said, the McMichaels or Mr. Bryan was not trying to have a conversation. The moment they grabbed those guns, they intended to use those guns.
The McMichaels and Bryan are in jail awaiting trial on murder charges. Cooper Jones says it's taken a lot of faith to see the case this far. The shooting happened in February, and as the mother frantically made phone calls seeking justice, the case stalled for 2 months, bouncing around from one DA to another. She couldn't even get a civil attorney to call her back.
At the end of each day, I prayed. I knew. When, I didn't know. But I knew that he would come through. And it worked out just like I said. I mean, he brought us through.
Finally, an attorney took the case. Then it exploded onto the national scene in May after the cell phone video made it to the media. Crowds demonstrating across the country.
Major turning point, because I do believe that without the video, we wouldn't have an arrest today. I would just tell anybody to just trust God. Trust him, because he will see you through.
Clean your face off and let him check in.
As for the defendants,
they are the Bible speaks of evildoers, and they just were evildoers. I want them to go to jail forever. They need to pay for what they've done.
Curiously, though, this mother says she does have a question she wishes she could ask the father, Greg McMichael.
What did you guys discuss at the dinner table when he was a child? What did you guys talk about? Was it love thy neighbor? Was it any type of love? Because you failed him. You failed him.
She says she will not fail to do her level best to get justice for her son.
My last words to Ahmaud was, I will find out what happened. Each time Ahmaud's name is called in court, I will be in court. I have to be Ahmaud's voice. Ahmaud's not here.
The mother says her son had been involved in trouble in the past, but that he was working through that. that jogging was actually therapeutic for him. In the aftermath, she has sold her house and moved from South Georgia. She says she no longer felt safe there because of threats against her family. In Washington, Eric Phillips, CBN News.
Such a sad story. Thank you, Eric. Well, coming up, Batter Up. America's pastime is getting a special makeover, giving everyone a shot to step up to the plate. That story next.
It's the new Superbook Bible app. It's packed with games, activities, and Superbook episodes that you can watch for free. Oh, no! There's trivia, a fun daily devotional, and answers to your Bible questions. Plus, an easy-to-understand Bible the whole family will enjoy. You can even create your own Superbook character. Ta-da! It's the new Superbook Bible app. Free downloads on iTunes, Google Play, and Amazon.
On the home front.
Thanks for joining us for CBN's On the Home Front, where we highlight what the men and women of America's military do to defend our country. CBN honors the men and women in our military with an initiative called Helping the Home Front. It partners with churches across the country to meet the needs of their military families, from repairing homes to wiping out medical bills for wounded veterans.
Watch On the Home Front today at 2:30. Get Protect Your Sleep and discover how to improve the quality of your life. A free DVD or booklet from the Christian Broadcasting Network.
If you're not a great sleeper, you can do things to make yourself a great sleeper. If you're already a pretty good sleeper, you can enhance your sleep and be even better.
5 leading experts help remove the obstacles between you and restorative sleep.
When you don't get a restful night's sleep, you wake up with an accumulation of stress.
Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to cbn.com to get your free DVD or booklet today.
Everything you do better with a good night's sleep.
You'll discover how food affects your sleep, how to put insomnia to rest, explore effective remedies for sleep apnea, and much more in Protect Your Sleep. Wake up to your best life and get Protect Your Sleep today. Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to cbn.com to get your free DVD or booklet.
Well, finally tonight, it was over 20 years ago when the first disabled child was invited to join a baseball team in his wheelchair. Today, nearly 200,000 children and young adults with special needs or disabilities are now part of what's called the Miracle League.
Under the lights, I'm a star tonight. Looks like I'm living the dream.
Some touching video there. The nonprofit organization works with volunteers and assistants called Buddies to make baseball accessible for everyone. The league plays on rubberized surfaces to make sure each player gets to bat and each team wins every game. From the thrill of playing to the friendships created, Miracle League is an oasis away from everyday battles for both the players and even the spectators. What a great way to end our weekend newscast. Well, thank you so much for watching Faith Nation. We are always privileged to bring you news at the intersection of faith and politics. You can stay connected and join our online conversation by downloading the CBN News app or by visiting our homepage, cbnnews.com. Thanks so much for watching and have a great weekend.